In this video, a hotel corporation decides to stiff a tile setter out of $50,000. They thought he'd just go away, take the loss, maybe hire a lawyer who'd drag it out for years. Instead, he came back with buckets of quick-drying concrete and poured it down every single drain in the building. Showers, sinks, toilets, all of them. The damage? Over $300,000. The hotel? Shut down for months. But that's not where we start. No. First, we have a welder, a dumpster, and a restaurant owner who's about to learn what happens when you trap a man's money, and he decides to trap your garbage. There's an old, unspoken rule in the trades. You break it at your own risk. And that rule is simple. Never stiff the tradesman. Because lawyers are expensive. Revenge? Revenge is free. These are 3 true stories of deadbeats who thought they could get away with it. They were wrong. Let's get into it. Our first tradesman is a welder out of Ohio. He's been in the game for 15 years. Works on everything, railings, gates, structural repairs, you name it. He thought this job would be simple. He was wrong.
So I get this call from a guy who owns a little Italian restaurant on the east side of Cleveland. Nice enough on the phone. Says he's got a dumpster out back that's falling apart, the hinges are shot, there's a hole rusted through the bottom, and the lid won't close right anymore. I told him I could fix it. Quoted him $800. Parts, labor, the whole thing. He didn't even haggle. Just said, sounds good, when can you come out? Should have been my first red flag, honestly. In my experience, the guys who don't haggle are either loaded, or they never planned on paying in the first place. I show up the next morning. And look, this dumpster was rough. Worse than he described. The whole back corner was rotted out, garbage juice had been leaking onto the pavement for God knows how long. The hinges weren't just stuck, they were fused. I had to cut them off and fabricate new ones. What was supposed to be a 4-hour job turned into almost 7. But I got it done. New hinges, new latch, patched the holes, reinforced the frame. That dumpster was solid. Probably better than the day it was delivered. So I go inside to collect. The owner's in his little office behind the kitchen. I hand him the invoice, $800, like we agreed. And this guy? He looks at it. Looks at me. And says, yeah, I'm not paying that. Just like that. Flat. Like I'd asked him for a tip, not the money he owed me for a full day's work. I said, excuse me? He goes, the job took too long. You were out there all day. I'm not paying for you to be slow. I tried to explain that his dumpster was in worse shape than he told me. That I'd actually done more work than I quoted. That I could have charged him extra and didn't. He wasn't hearing it. He offered me $200 and told me to take it or leave it. $200. For 7 hours of skilled labor. 4 parts. For my time. I didn't take the $200. I left. Didn't yell, didn't threaten. I just walked out. But I'll be honest with you, I was angry. Not the kind of angry where you punch a wall. The kind where you go quiet. Where your brain starts running numbers. Where you start thinking about solutions. I came back that night. Around midnight. Parked down the block, walked over with my portable rig. The restaurant was closed, the lot was empty, and that beautiful dumpster I just fixed was sitting right where I left it. And I welded it shut. I'm talking sealed. I ran a bead down every seam. Lid to frame. Frame to body. I welded the drain holes closed. I welded the hinges I just installed so they'd never move again. When I was done, that dumpster was a metal tomb. Nothing was getting in. And more importantly, nothing was getting out. I drove home and slept like a baby. 3 days later, I hear through a buddy that the garbage company showed up for their regular pickup and couldn't open the dumpster. They tried for 20 minutes. Finally gave up and left. A week later, I drove by just to see. The dumpster was still sitting there. In July. In Cleveland. Full of restaurant garbage. Rotting seafood, old pasta, meat scraps, just cooking in the sun. I heard the smell got so bad that customers started complaining. Then the health inspector showed up. Then the garbage company told him they'd need to bring in a cutting crew to open it, and they were gonna charge him for the emergency service. The final bill to fix my fix? I heard it was close to $3,000. Plus whatever the health department fined him. I never heard from him. No cops, no lawyers, nothing. I think he knew he had it coming. And I'll tell you this, if he just paid me my $800, none of that would have happened. But he didn't. So it did.
$800. That's what he saved. Temporarily. What did it cost him? His dumpster. His reputation with the garbage company. A health inspection. And about 2 weeks of customers walking past a biohazard to get to his front door. There's a lesson there. But I don't think he learned it. Now that story? That was personal. Quiet. A man, a welding torch, and a point to prove. But our next story? Our next story is a spectacle. Because when a wealthy homeowner decided to bounce a check on a landscaper, that landscaper didn't sneak around at night. No. He showed up in broad daylight. During a dinner party. With a full crew. And he took back every single plant he'd installed. While the guests watched from the patio. This one's beautiful.
I've owned my landscaping company for 19 years. Started with just me and a used truck. Now I've got 12 full-time guys, a fleet, contracts with HOAs, commercial properties, the whole thing. I've dealt with every kind of client you can imagine. And I'll tell you right now, the rich ones aren't always the worst, but when they are, they're the absolute worst. This story is about a guy I'll call Mr. Henderson. Big house in a gated community outside of Charlotte. We're talking 6 bedrooms, 4-car garage, pool, the works. He found me through a referral and wanted a complete backyard redesign. We met, walked the property, and he had champagne taste. He wanted Japanese maples. Mature ones, not the little saplings you get at Home Depot, but 15-year-old trees with established root balls. He wanted ornamental grasses, flowering shrubs, a whole perennial garden. I put together a quote, $22,000. That included the plants, the labor, the soil amendments, irrigation adjustments, everything. He didn't blink. Signed the contract, wrote me a check for half up front, $11,000, and told me he wanted it done before his wife's birthday because he was throwing a party. We busted our tails. My guys were out there for a week straight. We brought in a crane for the big maples. We graded the beds, laid fabric, installed drip lines, the whole 9 yards. By the end of it, that backyard looked like something out of a magazine. Seriously, I've done a lot of jobs, this was one of the best. I handed Henderson the final invoice. $11,000 remaining, due on completion, just like the contract said. He smiled, shook my hand, and said he'd mail the check. A week goes by. Nothing. I called his cell. Voicemail. Left a message. No callback. Another week. I called again. This time he actually picked up and said, "Oh, the check's in the mail, must have gotten lost." So I waited. Another 2 weeks. Nothing. I called again. Now his number's going straight to voicemail, and he's not returning messages. At this point, I'm starting to realize I've been had. This guy never intended to pay. He got his fancy backyard for half price and figured I'd just give up? Sue him and spend 2 years in court? But here's the thing he didn't know about me, I don't sue. I repossess. See, in my contracts, and I've had lawyers look at these things, there's a clause that says all materials remain the property of my company until payment is received in full. It's standard. Most people never read it. Henderson definitely didn't read it. So I did some homework. I drove past his house a couple times. And I noticed something interesting. Every Saturday evening, there were a lot of cars in his driveway. Turns out Mr. Henderson liked to host dinner parties, get-togethers, whatever rich people call them. I decided our retrieval would happen on a Saturday. 6 o'clock. Golden hour. Me and 4 of my guys pull up in 2 trucks with flatbed trailers. We park right in the driveway, right behind all those BMWs and Mercedes. Henderson comes running out before we even get out of the truck. He's in a sport coat, holding a glass of wine, and he's already red in the face. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I stay calm. I said, "Mr. Henderson, you're 4 weeks past due on $11,000. Per our contract, I'm here to retrieve my property." He starts sputtering. "You can't do this. I have guests. I'll call the police." I said, "Call them. I'll wait." And he did. He actually called the cops. Which, honestly, that was the best thing that could have happened to me. 2 officers show up. Henderson's ranting about trespassing and theft. I'm standing there with a copy of the signed contract and the clause highlighted in yellow. The cops read it. They looked at Henderson. They looked at me. One of them shrugged and said, "He's got a contract. This is a civil matter. We're not getting involved." And they left. The look on Henderson's face? I wish I had a picture. Now here's where it gets good. While he was dealing with the cops, my guys had already started. Shovels. Burlap. Dollies. We were moving. His guests started coming outside to watch. I'm talking 10, 12 people on the patio, wine glasses in hand, watching us dig up the Japanese maples they'd probably been complimenting all evening. Henderson was screaming. His wife was crying. And we just kept working. 3 hours. That's how long it took. We pulled every single plant we'd installed. The maples, the shrubs, the grasses, the perennials, all of it. We even took back the premium mulch. Left nothing but holes. When we were done, that backyard looked like a bomb had gone off. Craters everywhere. Dirt piles. Irrigation lines sticking out of the ground like broken bones. I walked up to Henderson one last time. His guests were still watching. I said, "You could have just paid the $11,000. Now you've got nothing. And you still owe me for the labor." He didn't say a word. Just stood there. I found out later from the HOA that he got fined for the condition of his yard. Had to hire another company to come fix it. And word got around about what happened. Apparently a couple of his neighbors asked me for quotes after that. I never got that 11 grand. But honestly, the look on his face in front of all his rich friends, that was payment enough. And those Japanese maples? I resold them to a client across town. They're doing great.
I love that one. I really do. Not just because of the revenge, but because of the audience. Henderson didn't just lose his landscaping. He lost his dignity. In front of everyone he was trying to impress. That's the thing about stiffing tradesmen. You're not just taking their money. You're disrespecting their work, their time, their skill. And some of them take that personally. But here's the thing, the welder worked alone. The landscaper had a crew. Both of them took back what was theirs and walked away. Our final story is different, because our final tradesman didn't take anything back. He didn't retrieve materials. He didn't make a scene. He destroyed a tile setter, a hotel renovation, $50,000 in unpaid work. And when that hotel refused to pay him, he came back with buckets of quick-drying concrete and poured it down every single drain in the building. This is the nuclear option, and it is glorious.
I'm a third-generation tile man. My grandfather started this business in 1962. My dad ran it after him. I took over in 98. We've done hospitals, schools, restaurants, high-rises. If it needs tile, we've done it. We're not the cheapest. We're not trying to be. You hire us. You get it done right the first time. And it lasts. This hotel job, I'm not going to name which chain, but you've seen them. They're everywhere. Came to us through a general contractor we'd worked with before. Mid-size hotel, 120 rooms, full renovation. They wanted all new bathroom tile. Floors, walls, showers, everything. We put together a bid, $52,000. They negotiated us down to 50 even. Fine. Still a good job. Big enough to keep my crew busy for 3 months. We signed a contract. Terms were simple. 50% upfront, 25% at the halfway mark, and the final 25% on completion. First payment came through fine. 25 grand, right on time. Halfway payment, 2 weeks late, but they got it to us. Another 12.5. We finished the job in early March. Every bathroom in that hotel, 120 of them, brand new tile. Immaculate work. The GC signed off. The hotel manager signed off. Everyone was happy. And then I sent the invoice for the final payment. $12,500. Nothing. I called the GC. He said the hotel was handling payments directly now. Gave me a number for their accounts payable department. I called. Left a message. No callback. Called again the next week. Got someone on the phone who said, "We're processing it." Great. I'll wait. 2 more weeks. Nothing. Now I'm calling every day. I'm getting transferred around, put on hold, given excuse after excuse. The check is being cut. We need additional documentation. The project manager has to approve it. It was always something. At 60 days, I finally got someone from their corporate office on the phone, a woman in their finance department, and she was honest with me. Probably more honest than she should have been. She said, "Look, between you and me, they're not going to pay you. They've done this before. They wait out small contractors until they give up or can't afford to sue." I asked her what my options were. She said, "Hire a lawyer. It'll take 2 years, and you might get 70 cents on the dollar. Or just write it off." Write it off. $12,000. 3 months of my crew's time. Just write it off. I couldn't do it. Not because of the money. I mean, yeah, the money hurt, but because of what it meant. This corporation, with their hundreds of hotels and their billions in revenue, decided that my family's business wasn't worth paying, that we were too small to fight back. And they were almost right. Almost. I thought about it for a long time. I'm not a reckless guy. I've got employees, a reputation, a family. I couldn't just go off half-cocked. But I also couldn't let them win. So I made a plan. I drove to 4 different hardware stores over 2 days. Paid cash at each one. I bought 24 bags of quick-drying concrete mix. The kind that sets in 15 minutes and hardens like stone in an hour. I bought 5-gallon buckets, a mixing drill, gloves, a dolly, and I waited for the right night. The hotel had just reopened after the renovation. They were running at about 30% occupancy, still ramping up. I watched for a few nights, figured out when the skeleton crew would be on duty. Tuesday night, around 2 a.m., there was usually just one person at the front desk and one maintenance guy somewhere in the building. I parked in the back lot. Service entrance. Here's the thing. I'd been in that hotel dozens of times during the renovation. I knew the layout. I knew where the housekeeping closets were. I knew which doors locked and which ones didn't. And I knew exactly where every single drain in that building was located. I got inside through a service door that hadn't latched right since construction. I mixed my first batch in a housekeeping closet on the 2nd floor. 5-gallon bucket, concrete powder, water from the utility sink. Mixed it thick but still pourable. Then I started, room by room, floor by floor. I poured concrete down shower drains, sink drains, toilet drains. Every bathroom on floors 2 through 6 got hit. That's 100 rooms, 200 drains, maybe more. Took me 4 hours. I worked quickly and quietly. Changed gloves every floor, so I wouldn't leave prints. Left the buckets and the mixer in a dumpster 3 blocks away. By the time I drove home, the sun was coming up, and somewhere in that hotel, hundreds of gallons of quick-drying concrete were solidifying inside their plumbing system. I heard what happened through the grapevine. Took about 2 days for them to figure it out. At first, they thought it was a clog. Called a plumber. The plumber snaked the drains and hit something solid. Tried again. Same thing. Every drain he checked, solid. They brought in another company. Then another. Eventually, someone scoped the pipes with a camera, and they saw it. Solid gray concrete, all the way through. Not just the drains, the main lines. The whole system was fused. You can't fix that. You can't clear it. The only solution is to tear out the walls, rip out all the pipes, and start from scratch. The estimate I heard? Over $300,000 in damage, plus the lost revenue from having to close half the hotel, plus the insurance nightmare, plus the lawyers trying to figure out who was liable. 300 grand, because they wouldn't pay 12.5. Did they ever figure out it was me? I don't know. I assumed they had suspicions. But here's the thing. There were a lot of contractors on that job who got stiffed. The GC told me later that I wasn't the only one. The electricians were still chasing money. The drywall guys had given up. Any one of us could have done it. All of us had motive. And none of us were talking. Do I feel bad about it? Honestly, I think about that question sometimes. And the answer is no. I really don't. They stole from me. They stole from a family business that's been running for 60 years. They did it on purpose, knowing I couldn't afford to fight them. So I fought back the only way I could. And if some corporation out there is watching this, let me give you some free advice. Pay your tradesman, because the next one might not be as patient as me.
3 stories. 3 tradesmen. 3 people who made a very simple mistake. They thought that the guy with the calloused hands and the dirty boots wouldn't fight back. That he'd just take the loss and move on. That he was too small, too tired, too powerless to do anything about it. They were wrong. A welder turned a dumpster into a sealed tomb of rotting garbage. A landscaper repossessed an entire backyard in front of a dinner party. And a tile setter turned a hotel's plumbing system into $300,000 worth of modern art. Here's the truth. Tradesmen aren't just workers. They're problem solvers. They spend their entire lives figuring out how to build things, fix things, make things work. Which means they also know exactly how to break them. So if you've got a contractor coming to your house, a plumber fixing your pipes, a welder repairing your equipment, pay them. On time. In full. Because the alternative? The alternative is expensive. Thanks for watching. If you've got a story about stiffing tradesmen, or getting revenge on one, drop it in the comments. I read all of them. And I'll see you in the next one.